Today we start with the book of Luke. Luke was a doctor. He was not one of the disciples, the immediate 12 disciples of Jesus. He was a doctor who wrote an account of all of the things that had happened in Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, and ascension. He wrote them for a friend. It says, with this in mind, since I have myself carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things which you have been taught. Luke was a doctor, so he would have been very precise. He would have been very careful and exact in the way that he recorded scripture. And he recorded it for someone that they might know and that they might understand the certainty to which the things that they have been taught. That's the why behind the book. Then we see that it opens up with two birth announcements. We talked in our last episode about John the Baptist, and here we see about his parents and how they were told he was going to be born. Now, Zechariah and Elizabeth, John the Baptist's parents, were very faithful men and women of God. Like, they believed the Lord, they were faithful to obey and observe everything he had commanded, and yet Elizabeth was barren. She was unable to have a child. Now, they're very old in life. Many of their years have passed, and yet they still remain childless. This isn't the first time in Scripture that we've seen a woman who is barren for a very long time. Sarah, Hannah, Samson's mother, and now Luke shares with us that Elizabeth, too, had gone through most of her life without a child, without children, without a family. And this would have been very shameful in that time. People might have looked at them like, oh, did you displease God somehow? Because people often equated a big family with God's blessing. And yet that wasn't the case. Zechariah and Elizabeth were faithful to the Lord, but he was going to use them in a bigger way than just normal everyday life and doing what was expected. It's almost as if even before the child was born and his birth and the timing in which he was born was going to signify, look, God is doing an amazing thing. Even in her old age, a child is coming. And then we see that Gabriel goes to Mary, a teenage girl more than likely, and he says to her, behold, you who are highly favored. And he shares with her, the Messiah, the Christ, is going to be born to you. It's okay that you're a virgin. The power of the Holy Spirit will overshadow you. You're good. This is coming. Jesus is here. Name him Jesus. And he adds this little tidbit of information. He says to Mary, and by the way, your relative Elizabeth, Zechariah and Elizabeth, she's in her 6th month of pregnancy. And it seems that immediately after the angel has told Mary that she's going to give birth to Jesus, she goes to Elizabeth, and it's almost as if she wants to see if it's true. I think it's such a powerful moment. I love that God gave Mary not only his words, but in this moment, he gave her a sign too. I think sometimes we can get really caught up in signs, and I don't want to do that, but look at how he was saying, look, this part of what I told you is true, therefore this other part of what I told you is true. And I think that's important because I believe that Mary's going to come up under some opposition. I don't think that people looked at her with a lot of friendly smiles. Being a pregnant teenager in that day and age was not okay at all. They could have stoned her for that. They didn't, and she was protected. She responds to the angel, may it be unto me as you have said. She seems to accept what God has told her is going to happen in her life. It's just the beginning. Both Mary and Zechariah, at the end of today's reading, we see that they just have these bursts of praise and adoration. It ends in worship. God is working out the plan for his salvation to come through the God-man, through Jesus, and we're just about there in the story.